Hey, I'll be right with you, sir. Captain and Coke. Oh, I wasn't aware we were talking yet. What can I get you? Drunk? Welcome to episode 8 of Behind Bars, Cocktails, and Wasted Nights. I'm your host, Greg. I've been working as a bartender for over 20 years, and over those years, I've seen a lot. My goal here is to share some of those high and low lights with you. Quick warning, this podcast contains sex, drugs, and some language that isn't suitable for anyone under 21 years of age, so you gotta have some ID. Before we get started, you'll need a drink. For this one, I recommend the Colorado Bulldog. It's gonna sound gnarly, but it tastes great. Grab your favorite vodka, I like Mythology Distillery's Chatter Wolf Rye Vodka, and pour 1.5 ounces into a mixing tin with ice. Add 3/4 of an ounce of Kahlua and shake the fuck out of it. Strain that over a Collins glass filled with ice and top with equal parts of half and half and Coca-Cola. Yum City. Or, if you don't have any of that, a shot of tequila and a fat rail is great. That's what I had. Okay, on with the story. It was 2015 and I'd lived in Aspen for 3 years. Mountain town years are basically 3 regular years, so it was time to move along. I was making a stupid amount of money, but the lifestyle was catching up to me. You get fucking killed all winter, then leave the country during spring, or as the locals call it, mud season, because you need to go to a foreign country, usually south of the equator, for some badly needed sun, fun, and great blow you score off your cab driver porque yo puedo hablar español. After high season, the Hotel Jerome closed for 6 weeks, so yeah, in addition to killing it financially, I had 6 weeks off a year, which in real life means you're fired, but Aspen's special. That spring, my landlord decided to sell the apartment located on the S-curve on the way into town where I lived, and I couldn't find a spot that would accept dogs. This meant I'd have to take a $70 cab ride to my new place down valley after every shift as the buses stopped running at midnight. In addition to having 6 weeks to contemplate my future and find a new place, I'd just broken up with my inappropriately young girlfriend, which in Aspen means you have a 1-week grace period to mourn before she took up with a friend to be named later and you saw them out together. Aspen. Where you don't lose your girlfriend, you lose your turn. I started getting restless. Aspen is a bubble, and if you end up moving past the roundabout, it's over. It's like moving to the valley in LA. You become persona non grata. You're considered DVT, down valley trash. I mean, if you move past a roundabout outside of town, you might as well move to Denver. So I did. Mark Yeager, a manager of the Hotel Jerome's bars, had moved to Denver and secured a job at a brand new hotspot in Denver and had recruited me to come manage the bar. So I started weighing my options. A swanky spot in a city really started to make sense. So I posted a, "Thank you, Aspen, but it's time to move on. Denver, here I come," on Facebook. Within 15 minutes, almost 20 friends, who also had mud season off, had shown up at my place waiting to help me move before I even got back with my U-Haul. That's how great the working class people of Aspen are. The wealthy can fuck off, but the real human beings were of a different stock. I hadn't even asked for help, and here were my friends of only 3 years carrying my huge sectional into the back of the truck and boxing up all my other stuff. They wouldn't even let me carry anything. 3 years we'd known each other. That's it. I lived in LA for 12. You know how many people helped me move from Hollywood? 0. It was overwhelming. I went to buy everyone beers, but that was a fake reason I left my apartment. The truth of the matter was that I was so overwhelmed by the support, I was bawling like a child. What a show of selflessness by the best friends I've ever had. It was either that or they really wanted me to get the fuck out of town. On top of that, my friend Miles offered to drive the U-Haul while I took my Cherokee I bought off my buddy for $800. I got an apartment in Denver. If you want to live in a semi-nice area, your only options are brand new spots with pools, jacuzzis, and gyms, and it's as expensive, if not more, than renting in Aspen. But I was going to be working at a trendy new spot, so I figured I'd be fine. This was not the case. The joint was called Solitaire, which consisted of 2 Victorian homes remodeled into a maze-like restaurant with different dining rooms on the first and second floors. Located in the affluent Highlands neighborhood, it was gorgeous, but it shouldn't have been called Solitaire. It should have been called Solitude, because no one ever came to the bar. It was rough. I had to juice grapefruit, orange, lemon, and lime juice with a manual juicer daily, and pretty soon I had to learn to masturbate with my left hand to keep my arms symmetrical. But the servers, who were the ones who were crushing it at the tables. We had assassins who'd worked all over the world and could sell $500 bottles to tables like it was bottled water. To add insult to injury, in addition to mixing craft cocktails, I was the one fetching the wine bottles for them in the first place. Sure, I'd make the pregame cocktails for the guests who waited for tables at the bar, but they'd ultimately have their tabs transferred to their tables, and I only get a percentage of the gratuity on the tips the servers got on their drinks. Working a bar in a fine dining spot is basically like holding the boom mic in porn, because you stand on the sidelines watching everyone else fucking make money. After my first week of netting an average of $40 a night, I began to panic. I mean, in Aspen, if I made less than $350 on a slow Tuesday, I'd be pissed. I was eating ramen and socking away cash to hopefully make rent by the skin of my teeth. I'd saved a nest egg from Aspen, which was depleted within 4 months, because out of Boston, New York, LA, and Aspen, Denver was easily the worst tipping city I've ever worked in. And while I'm at it, the worst winter city when it came to plowing snow. Seriously, Denver plows like 4 main streets and waits for it to melt in the sunny climate 2 days later. But I digress. I was regretting my decision to move in the worst way. In addition to the insane amounts of manual labor and knowledge I had to apply for $40 a night, I also had to memorize the menu, which changed nightly. This was the draw of the place. Now, if I'm acting or doing stand-up, I can memorize my shit. When it comes to a menu, because I couldn't care less about food service, I could read it 50 times and nothing will stick. I shit you not. In addition to this, the owner's wife was the most OCD person I've ever met, and if there was a speck of dust on the back of a stool, it was curtains for me. When pre-shift came, I'd be in a total panic. I could feel the blood throb in my ears. My hair turned gray in real time. We'd be inspected head to toe, checking to see if our ties were straightened, shoes clean, pants and shirts pressed, nails, hair, and beards trimmed. Then came the pop quiz. I didn't have time to study the menu because I was juicing and cleaning. Luckily, the chef who owned the place rarely called on me, but in 100% truth, I swear to you, I'd considered cutting off my pinky finger while slicing jalapenos into julienne strips just so I could go to the emergency room to avoid being called on. This was not working out for me at all, and I was terrified. I was trapped in a lease, I had no money, and this job was beyond demanding. Seriously, before I tended bar, I had to learn all the jobs, beginning with running food. I had to memorize table numbers in 7 different dining rooms, all the seat positions, and somehow not let the beautifully presented meals not tip over. I was a busboy, barback, and bartender. I'd never worked with tables in my life, and I was terrible. I'd auction off the entrees more often than not, diminishing the experience for the guests. Luckily, a couple servers I back-served for liked me and said I nailed it. Plus, this would get me behind the bar faster and I'd stop ruining their lives. When I worked the service well in the tiny room I called the Hurt Locker located next to the kitchen, I could hear when the chef called for help to run plates, and I would immediately fill my mixing tins with ice water, lift stab tickets off the stigmata spear, and hang them in the window to pretend to be in the weeds so when they'd come in to ask me to help, they'd see I was buried and get someone else to expedite. I was awful. What's worse than the fact that I was in a constant state of fear at work and out was that I had zero social life. I couldn't even afford to renew the registration on my Cherokee, and my fucking 2-building apartment complex towed it. Now I was really trapped. I missed Aspen. Realizing my desperate situation, Daniel, a South African national, and Matt, a good old boy from Georgia, decided to cheer me up. These two had a long history working 5-stars together in the Caribbean, and they were solid guys. They were the ones who said I was amazing on the floor and got me behind the bar quickly. Studley, we're taking you out. You need to drink some booze and mingle with some ladies, Dan said. Were they reading my diary? They took me to this new place that opened up called Avanti. It was a huge 2-story place with 3 bars, 7 shipping containers that were essentially restaurants, and it was loaded with hot girls. I was game, and I didn't mind being on their tab. I knew what they made in a night, and it was about $360 more than I did. It was summer, and the upstairs patio was shoulder to shoulder, and the 360-degree bar was 4 deep all the way around. Fuck, this is where I needed to work. Knowing it just opened, I knew there'd be the natural selection of opening staff, where the Darwinian course of life would shake off the weak, and they'd be looking for fresh bodies. I found someone who looked like a manager. His name was Duke. Yup, Duke. You gotta love the Wild West. He had a ponytail and a button-down open to show his chest tattoo. Hey man, I said, I just moved here and I'm in the market for a good gig. Can you handle crowds like this, he asked. Sure can, I said. I told him about this juggernaut sports bar I worked in L.A., where I got crushed nightly to the tune of $600 a night. I know it's not the time, you guys are packed, but I'd like to come in on a Monday or Tuesday after lunch or before dinner when you're probably slower and drop off a resume. He smiled because he knew I knew the business inside and out just by making that statement. Smart. Sounds like you get it, he said. Let's get you in here to talk then, he said. then turned his attention to the bar and asked the bartender to get my friends and I around. What the fuck? How was I the broke one in getting the first round for my friends? It didn't matter, because after that they proceeded to order me shots and beers, and before long we were tuned up, which is a huge mistake if you're in a bar where you've just pseudo-applied. But this place was so busy, I knew I could blend in and be invisible to Duke's eye. "Studley," Daniel said in his South African accent that I can't do, that also slayed women, "have you ever had a snort of tequila?" "Of course," I said. "We just did. A snort is slang for a shot," I said in my best Cliff Clavin. "No, man," Matt said. "Actually snort it." What the fuck? Who in their right mind would snort tequila? Before I could even finish the thought, Daniel had dropped $40 on the bar and gotten the bartender to flip 3 rocks glasses upside down and pour tequila into the dimple on the bottom. I screwed up my eyes and watched the liquid pool and rise into the base. "Here you go, buddy," Matt said, handing me the upside-down glass. These assholes. I wasn't going to fall for their grade school trick and inhale booze into my nose while they laughed. I was drunk, but not stupid. "Sure, guys," I said. "Let me get right on that." "He thinks we're kidding," Daniel said, and with that, closed a nostril with his finger and snorted the half-ounce of booze up his nose. What the fuck just happened? This guy was nuts. If he thought I was falling for the dare, he was out of his mind. Then Matt did it. Then they looked at me. So, since my motto is, I'll try anything once, a lot, I had to do it. If my friends jumped off this bridge, well, here comes a triple Lindy by yours truly. I closed my right nostril with my finger, because that side was for other purposes, and I didn't want to fuck with it. I sunk my left nostril into the booze pool and gave it a huge pull. I got all of it up there, and holy shit. My entire left side went numb and drooped like I just had a stroke. It stung behind my eye, and my brain froze like I ate ice cream too fast. Oh, and I was instantly fucked up. I don't recommend this for anyone, by the way, and I've never done it since, but yeah, if you want to get fucked up fast and shock people with a party trick, there you have it. It was that precise moment when I heard, "Are you Greg?" I pivoted and found this 30-something tall dude holding a stack of papers in his left hand and offering his right for a handshake. "I'm Isaiah, the general manager here," he said. "Yeah, Greg, that's me," I fumbled. I shook his hand and made blurry eye contact. "Heard you're looking for a job." "True story," I said. "Can you handle volume?" "What?" I said. "It's really loud in here." "Just kidding," I said. We both laughed. "Well, we just had some folks drop off, and I'm looking for a rock star to get in here." I knew he meant rock star bartender. I just snorted tequila into my face and didn't puke, so I was pretty sure I was a rock star. And I was a bartender. But I definitely wasn't a rock star bartender by any stretch. "That's me," I lied. I was about to fall over, I was so dizzy. Luckily, as a comedian, you learn to compartmentalize and give yourself over to autopilot. I call it the front office. It kicks in whenever you gauge an audience's reaction and think of your next move while you're already telling a joke but aren't even aware of it. It can also keep you from falling. "Great! Would love for you to come in for a stage next week. Here's my card. Shoot me an email and we'll get you in for a workout." I had no idea what a stage was. "Thank you for the opportunity, Isaiah," I said, hoping that was his name. It was. "No problem. We'll see you soon," he said. We shook hands and he left. It was then that my friends finally spit out their beers. They'd been holding in laughter the entire time. "I can't believe you just got a stage after you snorted tequila," Matt exclaimed. "By the way, what the fuck is a stage?" I asked. "Oh my god, Studley. It's when you work a shift for free. They get to try you out and you get to try them out. See if it's a fit." Thank God. I finally saw a light out of the solitaire tunnel. Things were turning around. I got the gig. I happily gave my 2 weeks' notice at Solitaire and couldn't hold back tears. I actually got pulled out from behind the bar mid-shift because I was such a wreck. I know, this is the second time I've cried in this episode. I'm not going to lie. I'm a marshmallow. And besides that, since I left my job in Aspen, I no longer had health insurance and was off my meds. The owner's OCD wife pulled me aside to an isolated table on the patio to comfort me. "What's going on?" she asked. I told her that I was so sad I had to leave, but the money just didn't add up. That I was so grateful they hired me in the first place, and I was just sad to go. The real truth was that the whole experience was a war of attrition, and I felt like I was finally being released from a prison camp after a warring nation's surrender was tendered. I started Avanti 2 weeks later, and I had never worked faster and harder in my life. I mean, the place was Uber's #1 pickup and drop-off destination in Denver. It beat the airport. It was packed year-round. I was making rent and even had a little extra cash. They even offered insurance and I could finally go to the dentist. It was awesome. Having walking around money does wonders for a guy's confidence. And that confidence apparently was perceptible to the opposite sex. I was radiating self-esteem. One night, my hot-as-fuck leasing manager texted me. Fuck, was I too loud? Did my dogs bark while I was at work all night? Was my fucking exorbitant rent getting raised? I literally just comped her 2 drinks at Avanti an hour before. What could possibly be wrong?